Welcome back to the Malt YouTube channel, Homebrewers. This is part 3 of our series exploring how to configure, how to set up and how to use the wonderful BrewBuilt X3 Unitanks.
I got an email from Owen at the Hop Edition podcast. They want to do an episode on smoke beers. Now,
I wonder why they emailed you.
No, well, that's what I thought. I do absolutely love smoke beers, and I've not made one for a little while, so I thought, why not grab this opportunity to make my beer and also test out the X3 in the configuration that we've got it in.
You've also taken the opportunity, haven't you, Rob, to upskill yourself a little bit in an area that previously has sent you to sleep.
Water chemistry. Now, this is really important. I've always known just how important water is in the making of beer. However, for this style, it is really important because I do not want ashtray smoke. I want smooth smoke, but it's going to be strong smoke. But I still want it smooth, not acrid, and the water treatment on that is going to be really, really important. I'm still not interested in water chemistry. However, and I am going to be one of these people that just wants to know what figures to put in so that I get the right outcome. I might well delve into the actual chemistry behind it so that I can give myself the proper knowledge, but for the time being, I'm filling out numbers on a spreadsheet. But at least it's me doing it, James, and not you.
Yeah, and actually, for the time being, this is a video about the BrewBuilt X3, not your endeavours with water chemistry, right?
This is right. So, shall we share my recipe?
Now, this isn't actually a brew day video. We're not going entirely grain to glass. This is like casting through to glass, packaging, serving, but a little bit on the recipe because, you know, we all know you love a smoked lager.
I do. Best malt smoked because I want that bacony, hammy kind of smoke. 50%.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yep.
45% Red X because I am going for a red lager. The traditional smoke style is really, really dark. Actually, I didn't want that for this brew. So 50% smoke, 45% Red X, 5% wheat.
And then what hops?
Hallertau Mittelfrüh. And the planned IBUs on this finished beer is going to be 24.
Right, all in 60 minutes, nothing later on, no?
I don't want any hot flavour, aroma or anything else. I want the smoke to do the shining.
And then what yeast are we using?
WHC Après-Ski 2 packets.
Okay, now that means we are going down the route of a lager, which is kind of the introductory steps into what we're actually going to be talking about in this video. So we're going to be fermenting a lager in the X3, right? We've got the wort there in the Brewzilla, chilled down, ready to cast over.
Yeah.
We're going to be using our adapted Grainfather GCA kit, right? With the glycol chiller, the GC2 glycol chiller we've got.
Yep.
Which we featured in the last video, but again, shout out to Joe Dell for all of his help getting that to work with the heating options that we've got here. What are we going to be doing? Are we going to be fermenting this under pressure?
No, James. No, we're not. I'm fermenting at 12 degrees and we're going to ferment at 12 degrees right until just a couple of points before final gravity.
And then from that point, what are we going to do? Are we going to dial up the pressure, naturally carbonate, or are we going to be adding carbonation through the carb stone?
In the final couple of points, I'm going to raise it and we're going to do a diac rest.
Yep.
Then we're going to cold crash and I'm going to carbonate through the carbonation stone, not rely on natural carbonation because I want the most amount of control that I can get and I want to use the carb stone.
And what we're going to do actually is we're going to feature each step along the way during this video. So over the course of the next few weeks, whilst Rob is fermenting his lager and getting it ready to ship off to the wonderful team over at the Hop Edition podcast, you're going to be able to keep up to date with everything that's happening in this tank and all the steps that Rob's taking to make sure that this beer turns out to be delicious, which I'm sure it will.
I'm sure it will, and obviously it needs to be because we're going to be demonstrating this with the other guys at the Hop Edition, and it's probably going to end up being on tap here during brew days and everything else, so it's got to be good.
None of it's going to end up here on tap for a brew day. It's all going to end up at your house, other than what we send off to the guys at the Hop Edition.
Maybe.
So the first thing we need to overcome is getting the wort from the Brewzilla.
Yes.
Into the tank. How are we going to do that?
We're going to fill it from this top port here, James.
Right, so if I get that bad boy off.
The whole of that tank, by the way, has been sanitised. We've got our finished wort here, not completely cooled down actually. We're going to rely on the cooling jacket of the X3 just to cool it the last 10 degrees or so. 8 degrees or so that we need to.
Right, I'll just get a little bit more sanitizer on the top of that tank.
Right, in here, I have got, so this is,
Oh, this is a messy boy.
yeah, can you grab that in?
Yeah, I've got it.
So this is going to be full of sanitizer, so
There we go.
Awesome.
And we're going to go into the
there.
top there.
and in there.
Now with smaller fermenters or lower down fermenters, you can just use either the recirculation arm, actually the recirculation arm, absolutely fine. But because this tank's so much taller, we need to pump the wort higher and then down through. And it does mean that we can still get that height that we need, right? And you can see, look,
Working in absolute treat.
you've got lovely work coming through.
Yeah, and what a colour. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits with that. Once that's fermented out, I am sure that's going to have the red hue that I really, really want.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be very proud of yourself. It's
Yeah,
very
I am. That is one thing about the Brewzilla, because I used it with an immersion chiller, not a counterflow. The hops and the cold break and everything else in there are acting as a filter, so you do get absolutely crystal clear wort in there.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think it actually matters to the final beer.
No.
But yeah, as a proud moment, that is a beautiful colour.
Now, we do carry across some, that's always the case, and you can see that down in the collection vessel.
Yeah.
If we wanted to, because we've got the ability with this, tomorrow we could close off that collection vessel, ditch that bit out, put it back on, don't even have to worry about purging it at this point, getting a little bit of oxygen back in there at this point in fermentation isn't going to be a problem. So all we've got left to do for this part of today is get the yeast in, 2 packets of après ski. Anything else you got going in?
Yeah, this is an absolute must, and we put it into all our beers here at the Malt Miller because Joe is gluten-free. We use NBS Clarity because we want to take the gluten out, and I want the best chance of this beer to be absolutely crystal clear. Right, we are on day 8 of this fermentation. Actually, it's gone really, really well. So 8 days at 12 degrees using the GC2 and the GCA, James's box of tricks. And now yesterday I increased the temperature to 16 degrees because actually we're down to 10, 13. I'm just going to do those final couple of points at 16 degrees. When I wanted to ramp the temperature up, that actually went up really quite quickly. I was pleased with that. The warming wizard with the, like I say, with James's box of tricks and the GCA is working an absolute treat. I'm just going to do a sample because I want to take another gravity reading before I cold crash this. I only need a small amount because I'm going to be using the Anton Par, but I'm absolutely chuffed to bits with the colour of that. And that's smelling absolutely delicious. This is without a doubt, it is not going to be for the faint-hearted or the first time smoked beer trier, because this is, this is full on. And it's absolutely tasting delicious as well. And it's just as I wanted. It's not ashtray smoke. It is aromatic, bacony. It's absolutely delicious. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the yeast and trub away because I don't want it on the yeast any longer. So I'm going to put a towel down because I know this is going to get messy. I just want to minimise the amount of mess I'm making because I'm actually not on a waterproof surface here either. So the trug underneath, I'm going to shut the valve off completely. Make sure that's closed completely, and I'm going to undo the tri-clamp, making sure that I'm undoing the right tri-clamp, not the valve tri-clamp. Now you can see I got away with just a mucky hand, and that was it. I'm quite impressed actually with how little mess, considering my form, I'm pretty impressed with how little mess I just made. Right, so now I need to get this cleaned up. Re-sanitized. I'm not worried about reusing this yeast or anything. It's going to be way too smoky for anything else. So get this lot cleaned up and back on the fermenter. Right, I just need to get me handy power sprayer, and this is one thing that this is really handy for because I want to spray the underside of this valve. So I've now got 5 litre jug with sanitizer in it, with my washed and sanitized yeast collection vessel. I need to get that back on there, and then we're going to flush it with CO2 to make sure we're not going to put any oxygen back into our lager. Oh, I need 3 hands. So I've got 10 psi positive pressure on the empty collection vessel here. And I'm going to add a disconnect onto the top port so that I can flush the collection vessel to make sure there's no oxygen left in it. I'm also going to take the spunding valve off, and I'm going to apply some top pressure now as well. I'm going to want some top pressure on this anyway whilst I cold crash, because obviously when I cold crash it, it's going to shrink, and we want some positive pressure in the tank whilst we're doing that. Now it's just for me to open the valve. Now I'm going to do it slowly because there is some things in brewing that you just need to do slowly. So as you can see, there's still some yeast and trub in here. I will actually do another further removal of that in the next coming days. And I'm now gonna start cold crashing this, but we're gonna do it softly. So I'm not gonna take it down to like 0 straight away. I'm gonna take it down to 8 degrees, and then I'll do it in another 2 steps, dropping the temperature down. Moving on to packaging. So the beer is now in the tank, it's bright, and it's been cold crashed, and it's been at about 1.5 degrees for a good couple of weeks. I put it onto carbonate about 24 hours ago, so I put positive pressure on at about 12 psi, and that's been on for 24 hours. I'm aiming for 2.5 volumes in the tank. I know that I'm going to lose a little bit whilst I am bottling. I'm aiming for about 2.4 volumes within the bottle. So it was so super easy to carbonate using the carbonation stone. The barb on the outlet of the carbonation stone is 3/8, so we can just use a John Guest adapter, push it straight on. So it's super easy to connect the gas up. I really like that about this particular tank. Also, I really like the fact that it's a really big, in comparison to the size of the tank, it's a really big carbonation stone. Also, when you connect it up, it was really nice to not hear a great load of bubbles. I just want a nice slow stream of bubbles coming from that carbonation stone. Now obviously I can't see it, it's inside a stainless steel tank, but I know that it was coming off really nice and gently, and I know that because of how nice and slowly the pressure gauge on the tank rose. So I'm going to be filling some bottles from this tank. I've got an upcoming podcast in a week or so's time, and I need to get these bottles sent in the post to other people that are going to be appearing on the podcast. So I've got to fill some bottles, as well as fill in a keg as well for myself so that I can drink it at home. So just to talk a little bit about the setup that I've got here, we're going to be using the Cannular can and bottle filler to fill my bottles. We're going to be drawing the beer out of the top of the tank, because one of the things that I really love about this tank is the amount of options that you've got. We've got in here a floating dip tube, and that's what we're going to be using today. Although if I'd set the tank up differently, I could have put a Nuka tap on the front of the tank here, and I could have used the Nuka tap counter pressure bottle filler to fill the bottle. So I've just got loads of options, which is, like I say, what I love about this tank. So we're going to be using the floating dip tube. We're going to connect that with a jumper line to the Cannular can and bottle filler. We're going to put top pressure onto our tank using our CO2 bottle. I've got a dual line coming off my regulator on the CO2 bottle so that I can put both top pressure onto the beer, but I can also put CO2 to the bottle filler so that I can gas flush the bottles. Really important to note at this point that everything I'm using is either sanitized or it's, at the moment, full of sanitizer, and we're going to use CO2 or beer to push it out. That way that we know that there's no oxygen in any of these lines. First things first, I've got some sanitizer here, and I'm just going to sanitize the complete top of this tank. And I'm also going to do all of my fittings. Gas line on. Next is going to be my jumper line. and make sure that wraps round so it doesn't get in my way whilst I'm bottling. Now, in an ideal world, I'd have this actually bolted to a wall, but I'm only actually doing 12 bottles. So just for that few bottles, I'm not particularly worried about this being slightly awkward. And I've got the complications of filming as well. Thanks, James. Right, I want to flush through this line. So I'm just going to pour it straight into a jug. I'm going to do a whole bottle's worth. You can just hear that because I've got this set up so it's flushing. So that's enough. I've done that, flushed enough through, get rid of all of the sanitizer, make sure all my lines are purged. I'm absolutely happy with that, and I'm going to put that there because I am bound to have a whole load of drips. One final sanitize of this. I've got my bottles, and like I say, because I'm only doing like 12 bottles, I've got them in a bucket full of sanitizer. If I was doing more than that, I'd have a whole bottling tree and the whole setup. But just for doing 12 bottles, it's so easy just to have them in a trug full of sanitizer. I've got a hand capper handy, as it were, and I've also got some crown caps. So basically, I'm ready to go. One thing that I'm not particularly happy with, and what I've not done, is made these bottles absolutely as cold as possible. Let's see how we go. So I can just hit this green button here and you can hear we've actually pre-configured this so that we have got CO2 purge in the bottle, and that's configurable. We can do that for as long as we want. And also the fill level, now that's configurable as well. And James and I, actually James, has completely sorted this out, so the settings are all absolutely perfect for exactly what we're doing. I'm just quickly going to grab a bottle cap because I need to sanitize it. I don't want to wet these until right at the very last minute because they've got the oxygen scavenger lid in them. Now I'm just going to do this one here so everyone can see. That is a nicely capped bottle. Fill height is absolutely correct. Absolutely chuffed to bits with it. Just moving on to my last bottle now, so I'll place that in. Now obviously this is exactly the same process if you were filling any size can. Obviously the only difference in the process is that you'd be seaming them rather than crown capping the bottles. It will also do any size bottle as well, so 250s, 330s, 500ml or even 750ml bottles. So that's 12 bottles done, actually in super quick time. The setup was really quite easy. And actually once we set it up once, it remembers it out of the box. So setting it up time and time again really isn't a problem. Keg time. So I've got an 8-litre Oxebar here that I've already prepared. Now I've done that by filling it 100% with no rinse sanitizer. I've then used this jumper line to push that sanitizer out using CO2. I've done that using this little double ender, which is a super handy bit of kit that we're really pleased to have here at Malt. We use it a lot. So that opens up the disconnect so that the sanitizer that was inside this keg could flow out into a trug. We could then throw it away. Plus, I have found with these kegs, they are not 100% draining like a corny keg is. Now, the way that I got the very last bit of sanitizer out of this keg is to flip it upside down and use the PRV. So flipped upside down, pulled the PRV, that shot the last bit of the liquid out. I now know that I've got a completely oxygen-free keg and line that I'm now going to connect up to my tank so that I can fill my keg. Also on here, I have got a spunding valve on here so that this is going to act almost like a counter pressure bottle filler. I'm going to have about 4 psi worth of pressure inside this keg, and I've got about 12 inside my tank so that the beer will push in but not too fast so that we can keep fobbing to an absolute bare minimum. Let's get going. Sanitize always. I'm taking this really slowly for the first bit because it's going through the mesh basket, and that is at the moment, it's above the liquid level. So I just want to take it really slowly. Yeah, I know that I have completely flushed this keg. It's just something inside me. It just means I want to do this bit slowly. Now it's above that basket. I've just turned the pressure up just so that it can flow a bit quicker. As you can see, there's literally no fobbing at all, which I'm really pleased with. I can also see that the pressure inside this Oxebar is creeping right up, so I can actually use the spunding valve, just open it up a little bit more. That will also speed up the flow of the beer coming into the Oxebar. Right, I've had to actually rip that off pretty quickly because I actually had less inside this tank than I thought. And actually you can see a bit of fobbing on here, and that was caused by the tank running out of beer and blowing CO2 directly into the bottom of the beer, which has caused this fobbing. That's one of the things about a stainless steel tank, is you cannot tell exactly how much is in the tank for the time being. So it's now 4:45 on a Friday. I want to get home quick, smart, but I've still got to completely disassemble and clean this fermenter. A lot of it's going to go in the dishwasher, and I'll worry about it on Monday.
Right, let's get that out of the way. Nice to see you've been tucking into that. There's not much left in that keg, is there?
No, actually I had to stop myself because we've got to film the end of this video, James.
Anyway, cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Now, how did your podcast go?
The podcast went really well. The guys from the Hop Edition, really passionate, know what they're talking about, and are pushing learning forward, both for themselves and the homebrew community, which is something that are just massively behind.
I have to say, now, I know this isn't a grain to glass video. This is about actually the X3 and our experience brewing with it, packaging with it.
Yeah.
This beer's killer.
Yeah, I'm actually delighted with it. And do you know, the other thing was that using the equipment that we did to package the beer and get it sent out to the guys, I actually made sure that I drunk bottles of the beer. Okay, it hadn't been sent in the courier network. I'd obviously just taken it home in the car. But I was trying to replicate the experience that they had as much as I could at home with that. And as we've judged competitions and been involved with competitions, we know you can taste a beer here, and that beer tastes totally different once it's got to the whoever's tasting at the other end. So
transit makes a difference.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but yeah, it can really fail at that last stage.
Like we said, this isn't a video reviewing your lager, but it is delicious. What I'm really interested in at this point, Rob, is to find out about your experience using the X3, because whilst I was with you for parts of the video, I was filming it, you actually were the person that took complete control and charge of using the X3 as our fermentation vessel for this particular beer. How did you find it?
Do you know, I think it's a really good bit of kit, and really enjoyed brewing on it. Let's start with things that need to be considered, and I'm talking specifically about this tank because we wouldn't be talking about it on the bigger tanks. Because I've stacked so many accessories in that tank. We've got heaters, thermowells and carb stones. The real estate inside the tank is relatively small because it's a small tank. The floating dip tube got caught up in amongst those components and didn't drop right down to the bottom of the tank. So whilst I did manage to empty the tank completely, it was more difficult than it would have been. Yeah. That needs thinking about.
Yeah, so what would you do there?
Yeah, actually my favourite idea is to fit the tri-clamp shank adapter to the sample port. Yeah. So do away with that sample valve completely and put a nuka tap on there. Yeah. And then once you've got a nuka tap, actually you could carb in the tank and then use the counter pressure bottle filler to fill bottles directly from the tank. That's what I would do.
So what about for kegging, Rob? Because you know that's a little bit different to filling bottles.
Yeah, well, you'd be able to still use the nuka tap to go. We've got a fitment that goes in the nozzle of the nuka tap, which goes straight out onto 3/8 beer line, and then you're sorted for kegging. Or you could not use a nuka tap on there at all. Brew Tools do a 1.5-inch tri-clamp with a liquid ball lock fitting, like a corny keg fitting, and once you've got that on the front of the tank, world's your oyster, you can do what you want.
Well, and actually, if you wanted to take samples, you can then just use like a party tap, you know, straight onto that as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Also, I would suggest, and some of this depends on time of year, if you are fermenting in the summer, you're going to have condensation coming from both the tank and, more importantly, the lines that I've run. Do you know what? In Homebrew, we cannot have hard lined glycol setups, but oh man, I wish that we could, because whenever we are fermenting, you know, we've got the glycol chiller and they've got the lines that go from the glycol chiller to the tank, and they get mucky, they soak up the condensation. Yeah, we need to look for a better solution for that.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a pain in the arse. Those lines get really mucky, and we end up actually having like a drip point down into a trug, so it drips into a trug rather than soaking the floor. But then once you've done like a 2-week ferment, or like in this case where I was lagering for how long? Well, however long, a long time. So you've got those connected the whole time, and the whole time it's causing condensation. So we need to come up with a better solution for that. And this isn't about this tank in general, it's about fermenting with stainless steel equipment, and the more flexible you want that tank to be, the more ports there are on the tank, the more accessories you're using, the more possible points there are for leak. So you've got to make sure every single port's done up really nice and tightly, and then obviously when you come to cleaning, there's a lot more to clean as well. You've got ways around that, and funnily enough, I'm a massive advocate for small stainless steel parts going in the dishwasher for cleaning, and then spray ball is where I'm at.
Yeah. How was cleaning?
Tiny tank, I can get my hand right in it, and that's absolutely fine. Big tanks, you have to have a spray ball.
Yeah.
You have to have a spray ball.
Yeah.
And actually, I did put that over the bucket blaster, and because I needed to clean kegs at the same time, and actually that did a fantastic job. So a few little alterations on the bucket blaster if you're going to be using it, you know, time and time again to clean a tank, but I've got that bucket blaster is an awesome tool. That bucket blaster is an awesome tool, so don't overlook that when you're looking at spray balls and clean in place situations.
Yeah, I mean, with a tank like this, because you've got the ports at the bottom as well, with the right size bucket, you could actually have the bucket blaster going up through the central port at the bottom, not upside down on top of the bucket blaster. I mean, with all that being said, right, these are things that we're learning about, and hopefully that means that when you come to use an X3, you know, whether it's your first time using one, you're a proud brand new owner, you've got some of those things already in your mind to consider when you get your first fermentation underway. What did you love about it, Rob? Because you were waxing lyrical the whole time. Yeah,
it's about how precise you can be with it is really, really nice. So when it comes to temperature control, carbonation control, you can just dial it in precisely. You've got the pressure gauge on the top, or you can add the spun-in valve to it if you want to. And actually what we did while we were carbonating the beer, so that we could get a precise level of carbonation inside the tank. And the fact that, yes, okay, I've got items inside the tank, but I've not got a coil down the middle of the tank for cooling. It's jacketed. Absolutely brilliant.
Way more efficient. And the other thing about it that really stood out for me when I was behind the camera was actually packaging from it. Packaging from it was an absolute breeze. Yeah, there's a bit of stuff to consider to get set up and think about your method of packaging, whether you're packaging into bottles, kegs, or Oxebars, whatever it might be. But it was easy. There was no sweat there at all.
No, it was really nice. The other thing is, I really like the mirror polished, finished on the outside, but even more so on the inside, because it makes cleaning much, much easier. One other thing on this design of the X3s, and this is way better over the X2s, actually there's a couple of things. The splayed legs on this make fiddling around at the bottom of the tank, whatever you're doing at the bottom of the tank, you might be taking the dump vessel off or fiddling around with the valves, whatever it is, there's way more room in there because you've got those splayed legs. It's a really nice design feature. And then obviously the biggest thing about the X3s over the former, the X2s, is how easy it is to get that top, the 8-inch tri-clamp at the top, to seal. Just no issue. It absolutely fantastic.
Especially with those new flanged gaskets, right?
Yeah, really
little
cool.
touch, but absolute joy.
Just as we said at the start of the video, incremental improvements of the product that all come together to make it it's a wicked product. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed our little video series about fermenting and packaging from the X3. And actually, a big shout out and thanks to the Hop Edition podcast, because this all came about because I wanted to brew a lager because I was going on that show. So thanks very much for that. Now, if there is anything that we haven't covered, and I'm sure there will be, that you've got questions about, just tap us up below and we will come right back to you.
Now, if you have made it to the end of this video and you're not already a subscriber to our channel, and yeah, we know probably about 70% of you aren't, please do make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. And of course, share it with your friends and family. We all know they love homebrewing just as much as you do. And as ever, have a great brew.
Cheers.
Cheers, Rob.
Cheers.